Welcome to Life with Beth and Court,
where we teach you how to live authentically and build your best life,
one step at a time. Hello and welcome. What is our mic check today?
Well, I thought I would do our mic check inspired from one of your book choices that we're going to share today.
One of mine?
Yeah. You ready?
Okay.
I dare you to lead. I dare you to lead. I dare you to lead people like they've never been led before. I dare you to lead. I dare you to lead like they've never been coached. They've never been coached.
Yeah, that song's got a big range.
Whew, that was rough.
That's Switchfoot.
It is.
I saw Switchfoot. Fun fact.
Oh.
I saw Switchfoot back when they were not as big of a deal as they later became. And I saw them. My best friend at the time was super obsessed with them. And she's like, hey, do you want to go see this band with me in this? It was like in the park in Grand Rapids or something.
Oh, wow. So way before they became a thing.
Yeah. So we went, well, they were still kind of big. So we went there and that was the first time I ever heard them play. And I was highly impressed, as you might imagine. And so afterwards we were like, we bought the CDs and whatever. The CDs, did you hear that?
I did.
Back when we played music on such devices. So we bought the CDs and then we were in line to get their autographs. And because I didn't know who they were, I obviously didn't know who the band members were.
Oh, gosh.
There was this like gate where the band members, presumably the band members, were standing and everyone was getting their autographs and whatever. And so I had gotten kind of close.
You were talking to one, weren't you?
No, quite the opposite, actually. So I had gotten pretty close and I thought, well, I'll just get this guy's autograph first. And so I said, can I have your autograph? And I handed him the booklet, the insert of the CD. And he goes, oh, I'm not in the band, but I'll sign it. And I was like, oh, yeah. So I have some guy named Matt's signature.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. I don't know why he was behind the barrier. But, I mean...
Because he probably was a Courtney and did whatever he could to get back there where he should be.
They didn't have security or anything, so, they just let him back there.
Right.
And I was confused. I was a first-time Switchfoot hearer, and I wanted to be a bit of a fangirl, but I did it wrong.
Right.
And I got some random man's signature.
Well, now we have the internet, so you can fangirl and see what they look like before we go to a concert.
That's true. Do they still tour?
I don't know. It just meant any concert in general.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
I get it. Well, the way we got around that with Old Dominion is we just got on stage while they were actually
did what I said
singing.
we should do?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I see how you swung that back around to you being right about it.
You want to know what I'm really excited about for this episode?
Tell me.
That I'm sitting on the couch with a fuzzy blanket and I'm not having to stand up perfectly and speak into the pop filter, so I have to censor and monitor my puh sounds, but it's well worth the freedom of double hand holding the microphone.
You are. We're actually both double hand holding. I don't know why. Like it's a precious
favorite
piece of equipment.
My goal is to do fantastic on this podcast so you don't have to edit that much, and then I can use it as leverage in the future to say, see what happens when you let me do what I want with the microphone.
Interesting. I wouldn't hate that technique, actually.
Okay.
It just
I will
means
try
less
my
work
hardest.
on me.
I need to focus now.
All right, let's kick this thing off. Welcome back to another episode of Life with Beth and Court. I'm Beth.
I'm Court.
And today we're talking about something that's so exciting to me. When we were prepping for this episode, I wrote like 17 pages.
Yeah.
They were small pages.
I had to be like, okay, we have to record now.
I was just so excited because today we're talking about our favorite book recommendations.
Yes.
Oh, it's going to be so fantastic.
Oh, they're recommendations? I just picked my favorite books.
Oh, well, I mean, by nature, when you say this is my favorite and people care about what you do,
okay,
they kind of take it as a recommendation, if you will.
I just feel really unprepared now, but it's okay. Let's roll with it.
Yeah, just roll with you're telling them what your favorite is. It's like your lipsticks, for instance. People are like, what's your favorite lipstick? And you tell them, and by way of telling them your favorite, you're also recommending.
Fair.
All right. The format that we're going to go with on this episode is we're going to give our top 3 favorites. and we'll just go back and forth the way we did the This Is 30 episode. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So do you want to start us off with your number one? Or hold on. Again, the same questions we had at the This Is 30 episode.
In order.
Are these in order? Is this like favorite first?
Yeah. Let's do favorite first.
Okay, so we're going in order of favorite.
Yes.
Okay.
And now I'm thinking of Flava Flav. Flava Flav's favorite first.
Wow. You didn't even get tongue-tied on that one.
No, I definitely had practice with the Peter Piper Peck to Peck of pickled peppers.
Wow.
Did you hear it? It was lovely without the pop filter even.
We'll find out in post. All right, let's kick this one off. So let's go with your number one favorite / recommendation.
Okay, so my fave book, my top one, is Simplify 10 Practices to Unclutter Your Soul by Bill Hybels.
Oh, that is a really good book.
It's so good. And this was the game changer book for me. So I read this at a time my life was very crazy, very stressful, very overwhelming. And I remember thinking that life was so overwhelming, there's no way I was actually going to read this book. And I guess we should kind of talk about that for a second.
Yes, let's talk about that.
So Beth would like me to share with everyone.
I would just like you to clarify,
for the good of the group, that I rarely actually finish a book. And I'm okay with that because I read it and then I'm like, man, that's really good. And then I just close the book and walk away with it. And I carry that knowledge around with me.
And sometimes she just lays the book under her pillow. I've found that before. I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, I really wanted to read this book, but I'm too tired. So I'm just going to...
I can't even deny that because
I'm just going to tuck it under my pillow, and somehow through osmosis, this knowledge is going to get into my head as I sleep.
Weirder things have happened.
Well,
okay.
I mean, living with you, that's true.
Maybe I don't finish books all of the time, but I read until I get to a point where I feel like this is really good information. Or sometimes I just skip around and read the chapters that sound exciting to me, and that's also a fun way to do it. So, and sometimes I go back. Like sometimes a year later, I'll be like, man, whatever happened in this book? But I know enough to get around and get through life. And that's all we need to know.
Well, and your method of reading books is also quite interesting because, as you just found out, when we tried to go back to old books that you, and I always said this at the time, and you thought I was hating on your reading style.
She was.
You go through and you highlight every sentence of the book. Mm-hmm. And you sometimes use different color highlighters, mostly not. And then when you go back a second time and you can't figure out what was the important part, you then use an underline.
Circle.
No, there's the underlining is a stage as well. There's an underline. Yes. And then when you go back a third time and are like, shit, I've now highlighted and underlined every sentence. Then you start circling.
You're very close to being accurate, except those all three happen at the same time. I don't go back in steps and redo it. Like
you just do all three at once.
Yeah.
You're like, let me highlight this sentence, underline it, and circle it.
This is how it goes. I'll read a paragraph and be like, oh, that's really good. I'll highlight the whole paragraph. But this line, like this sentence, this is the punch of the paragraph. So then I underline it. And then I'm like, but out of this sentence, these two words are so impactful. So like my brain knows when I go back and scan through, like, am I looking for the words? Am I looking for the sentence? Am I looking for the paragraph? But yes, to your point, when I tried to go through to find quotes, it was very confusing.
It's interesting because when I go back and I look in the margins of mine, I've found that I actually draw emojis. So
what?
Yeah,
I didn't know this.
Yeah, like in one of my books.
I'm gonna need to see proof real quick.
Well, it's in the Circle Maker. I'll show you.
Okay.
But I will write notes. I don't know who I'm talking to, but I'll say, haha, saw what he did there, and I'll put like the laughing emoji.
Oh, I write those notes to myself too.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm talking to me.
We are.
Or if we're talking to like, if perhaps I ever give
the
this
author
book away.
It could be us we're speaking to or the author, like we're giving back and saying, oh man, you're so funny.
You, Mark Batterson.
Or if you give it, I think giving it to someone, that's just a nice side effect. Like I'm either talking to myself or talking to the author, but I've never I've never drawn an emoji.
No?
No.
You should try it sometime.
I don't know how. I'm not
All right,
gifted.
back to the task at hand. So
I got
tell
distracted.
Tell me the top 3 reasons that you really connect with in Love Simplify.
Oh, I didn't know we were going to be that structured.
Sorry,
Okay.
I didn't really give that to you. I just decided it.
That's fine. I might follow your rule. I might not.
Pretty par for the course for you.
What stood out to me. So the first line of this book, let me back up. The first chapter of this book is called From Exhausted to Energy. Probably says energized. I probably made a short note. But the first sentence says, taking a break in America is perceived as weakness. And I'm going back. It's from exhausted to energized. And so when I was super burnt out and at a crazy point in my life, having that be the first thing I read in the book was super impactful because I'm like, yeah, so that's why I'm working so hard. The awesome thing about this book is it takes you on a journey through each chapter. So chapter 1, from exhausted to energized, from overscheduled to organized, from overwhelmed to in control. And it really just takes you on a transformation each chapter. And each chapter, there's a takeaway exercise that you can do from it. And I think for me, I really value that in a book. And I've realized as we were looking at our top books that that's really impactful for me because my brain works in the way like I need to read it, digest it, and then I need to do it, or I need to implement it, or I need to reflect on it. Otherwise, I just end up going through the whole book. There's no checkpoint and I don't really process it all the way through. And I've realized that that information doesn't stay with me as well. So that's the top thing I love about this book is that it gives you that transformational journey in each chapter. For me, this was a really beautiful way to make, when we talk about micro actions and micro steps, it was the first book that gave me that toward a really, really big goal that I didn't even know I needed. I was exhausted and burnt out, but I just thought like, this is life. This is how you do it. Like, this is part of this job. But he was the first one that showed me, no, it's not. And this is what's going to happen on the other side of it if you don't start taking these micro actions and putting things into place. And so the 2 biggest takeaways from this book, like the actions I did from the chapter that really helped me. So for those of you that know our exercises from our course that is coming out very, very soon, there's a fill your bucket exercise. And
yeah.
This is one of our favorite exercises because it's so powerful. And you and I have been doing that since I read this book. So 3 years.
Well, I think we read this book together.
No, we didn't.
I finished it before you.
No, you didn't.
I absolutely did.
This was my copy of the book.
I can promise you because I listened to it on audio.
Oh, yeah. You do beat me when you listen on audio.
I've rented it from Hoopla 4 times. I just looked at my history.
That's true. Okay, I believe you. So we started doing the fill your bucket activity together, and then we started to put our own little spin on it. But this is where that idea was inspired from. And so it's talking about making a list of things that energize you and make you happy on the inside of the bucket, and then putting things that drain you on the outside of the bucket. And the beautiful thing is, this is something I do over and over, like the values bracket, because I know if I'm having a hard time finding things that fill my bucket, I'm in trouble. That means I'm not in a good space. I'm not having good energy because I should be able to come up with things that make me happy. And when I first did this exercise, I could not fill the bucket. I think I had 5 or 6 things that made me happy and then 25 on the outside of the bucket that were pissing me off.
You were an angry elf.
I was an angry elf with an angry, sad bucket. It wasn't full. So anyway, all of that to say, this exercise is something I continuously do because it helps me increase the things I love. If I have a free day, I can go to that list of things and say, this is what fills my bucket and I want to do this. Or if I'm feeling a little low, I can do those things. And I've also reduced the things on the outside of the bucket. So I used to have 25 things that irritated me. And now I would say maybe there's like 6 or 7, because as you fill your bucket, you learn to work the things on the outside of the bucket that you don't wish to have. And so it's just this really cool exercise. And so he gives some really, really great analogies in the book surrounding that. And then my other takeaway from the book was around scheduling. And I put a bookmark in to read this to you guys because I highlighted everything. So he says, a runaway calendar will keep you from simplifying your life. It holds you hostage to tangible things, meetings, appointments, and projects. without giving you proper priority to the intangibles, who you are becoming, your relationships with family and friends, your connectedness to God. Probably should have mentioned that Bill Hybels is a pastor, and it's a religious book, but still really good. It has a lot of good concepts, even if you're not religious. And then underneath it, it says, newsflash, you are the boss of your schedule. It's your responsibility to keep command of your calendar, and you must in order to simplify your life.
Oh, it's so good.
And I remember being like, oh my gosh, that's so true. I have all of these meetings and all of these things to do and all of these agendas. And then he told a story about how he chose one word. He prayed for one word that he was going to put on his calendar and protect it for himself like he would any other meeting or any other agenda item. And for him, he wrote home, which meant 3 nights a week he was going home and disconnecting and not worrying about work and spending time with family. And I remember for me, my 4-letter word that I chose, I prayed about it. I guess I didn't choose it, but what came to me was heal. Mm-hmm. And at the time I was like, I have no idea what that means. I have no idea. But it was shortly after that I started my health and wellness journey and my holistic supplements and healing and everything like that. And so I did put that on my calendar, and it became transformational for me that I now have healed from a lot of things physically, emotionally, and it really just set that pathway of being intentional with what I put on my calendar. So those are just 2 exercises from the book, and it's fantastic. So that was my life-changing book that I love. Every time someone comes to me and they're struggling, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you a copy. Like I remember with my staff, I would be like, Miss Reagan, can you make copies of this for this teacher and this teacher? Or I'll tell them to get the book because we are so overcluttered and we're moving so fast. And that's how society sets it up to be. And this really helps you break it down and have actions to simplify and have a healthier life.
Totally. I love that book. It was very, very powerful. Like I said, I like to listen to things and I typically have to listen multiple times. So I've listened to that book about 4 times, and we've adopted different exercises he has you do in that book. And that's a commonality that you and I both have, is that our books, I don't know what your other 2 are, but my books all have that common thread that they give you action items.
Yeah.
At the end of each chapter. Yeah. So my number 1.
I thought maybe you should share how you read books. We talked about my highlighting extravaganzas.
We talked about how you're the reading through osmosis, put it under your pillow kind of reader. Yeah. No, I finish books because
all the way.
I feel like I'm compelled to do so.
Because it's a rule.
And it's just unfinished and it needs to be finished, and books were written to be read all the way through.
C to the D.
I like to listen to my books. Actually, I like to listen to them and read them and listen and read them. So typically when I have a book that's really impactful to me, I've listened to it at least 5 times, and I've also read it.
She's not kidding.
Yeah,
5 times.
I'm really not kidding at all.
I hear it when I'm getting ready in the morning, and I'm like, didn't you already listen to this book? And she's like, yeah, I'm just listening to it again. And I'm like, because you don't remember?
But there's also like this familiarity piece of it too. Like when I'm feeling out of control in my life, I'll want to hear the familiar voice that I know. So I'll go back to like a Brené Brown book or Brendon Burchard, which is one of my top, those are actually 2 of my top authors. So
I see
nice segue. So I'm an audio book listener, but I'm also a reader, highlighter. I do not highlight every sentence. It actually frustrates me when I highlight too many sentences on accident. So yeah, I guess I do have a particular reading style. OCD. I wouldn't call it OCD. I would say I've got peculiar habits.
Anyway, what's your first book?
My first book is called High Performance Habits: How Extraordinary People Become That Way by Brendon Burchard. So this book, shockingly, I listened to it first. And I actually, when I opened this book while we were researching for this, turns out I gave you the hard copy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we forgot that because we usually write notes to each other in books. So I was like, what's it say? And it said something like super sweet, and I never read the book.
Gosh, I'm so sweet.
You are so sweet.
Also, you asked when it was from, like when I wrote that. And we've discovered recently, as we've gone through a lot of things that we've written to each other.
We're so bad at dating things.
We never put a date on it ever.
No.
So
then we try to go back and like
as good as mine.
Figure out based on context, like, maybe it was this
what time of our life was this?
And then we write the date if we can figure it out.
With high performance habits, it gives you questions and prompts at the end of each section, like we talked about, so that it helps you bring these topics more sharply into focus in your own life, because it kind of takes it from being a concept to being an actionable item.
Yeah, for sure.
And Brendon has always given very good prompts. I find his prompts very helpful to reflect on. So I love that about the end of each concept, the end of each chapter that he talks about. And he does have it laid out, so section 1 is personal habits. Habit 1, seek clarity. Habit 2, generate energy. Habit 3, raise necessity. Section 2 is social habits. So increase productivity, develop influence, demonstrate courage. Section 3 is sustaining success. So beware of these 3 traps, the number one thing. And then he gives you a summary there of all that his research has shown are the habits of the most highly successful people. So I love his style, and he has a very fictional style of writing that's interlaced with a lot of research in his books.
Did he write The Golden Ticket?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So he did do a fictional book.
Yeah, that in particular was inspired by real life events. So if you've never heard his story before, he almost died in a car accident when he was 19, and he climbed out of the car, and he paints a very graphic picture of how messed up he was from the accident. And he remembers the moon shining down on the hood of the car and glistening off his own blood, and realizing that this was kind of his second chance, that he was handed a golden ticket to kind of do life right. So very powerful story, personal story of his. And then he kind of wrote Life's Golden Ticket off of that experience. So
it's a good book.
Yeah, I couldn't decide on just 3. So with each top book, I also gave other honorable mentions. And so,
oh, good.
Yeah, his other 3 honorable mentions are The Charge, which isn't fictional, Life's Golden Ticket, and then Motivation Manifesto.
That one is a tough read. I remember we started it, and I had to go back and read the first chapter.
So Motivation Manifesto is very smart.
Yeah.
That's how I would characterize it. So Life's Golden Ticket is a story.
Yeah.
And it kind of gives you
Ferris wheel. Woo!
Yeah. It kind of gives you a life lesson, or many life lessons, through a fictional story. Whereas Motivation Manifesto is,
yeah,
you got to have some laser focus to get through that book. So overall, what I love about this book is that I completely wholeheartedly agree with everything he's talking about. And I remember when I first heard it, I wanted everyone I know to go listen or read it. It was probably
why you bought it for me.
Probably why I bought it for you. So that shores up our number 1 picks. So moving on to pick number 2. What is your second pick?
Oh no. Well, I had my other 2 written out and I took notes, but now I'm staring at the other 3 I brought just in case, and I'm having a hard time deciding.
You and I had a very hard time deciding.
We can do honorable mentions, right?
Oh, I have 19, so go for it.
I want to read one part of an honorable mention. Is that allowed?
I mean, we can bend the rules for you.
Phew. Okay. So the next book that I'm going to talk about it's a recent book. I think it came out this year or last year, is No Bad Kids, Toddler Discipline Without Shame by Janet Lansbury. And holy cow. So my background being in early childhood education, I'm pretty skeptical to endorse a book. I dove into this one, and everything she wrote. Okay, I haven't finished it yet, but this one I'm pretty close. I have 20 pages left. Everything she wrote, I just remember going, yes. Hell yes. Every person who interacts with children, whether you're a parent, a caregiver, or a grandparent, or an aunt, or if you see a child anywhere on your daily commute, I just feel like...
On your daily commute?
Yeah.
How many people are just randomly see a child?
I don't know.
Okay.
But so if I could summarize this entire book, and I will say that a lot of her work is cited from Magda Gerber. And so Magda Gerber, she was phenomenal in the world of early childhood. And she is the one that coined the concept that children are whole, competent beings from birth, and they should be treated as such. So all of her...
That's powerful.
It's so powerful, and all of her work really focuses on respecting the child. And so what I love about Janet Lansbury's book is everything that sticks out to me. Basically, if you follow this rule, you'll be okay with children. If you wouldn't do it to an adult, don't do it to a child. So to give an example of that, oftentimes when children are little, so let's talk infant toddler age, they're adorable. So there's a lot of like, oh my gosh, you're so cute. And oh my gosh. And like, I get it because I do that to puppies. But what you're doing is you're giving them so much overstimulation and so much feedback, and you're not allowing them to just be present in the moment with you and have that time to study your face and like hear your voice and build that relationship. And so really just treating them as whole human beings and like, oh my gosh, you're smiling right now. I can see that you're smiling, or you're making this sound. What are you trying to say? Like, it's just so crazy the things we do to children, and they are so capable of so many things, and we just have to give them the opportunity to show us that. So they gave the example of large group time. For those of you who aren't familiar with childcare settings, large group is a time where all of the children can come together and the teacher might be singing or reading a book or whatever. Think of large group time that you have an option to go fight your way to try to be close to the teacher and sit with 15 other kids, crisscross applesauce, and try to like be in this space that maybe you don't want to be in, maybe you're not interested, maybe you're not comfortable, or there's like slime on the table or something super fun and exciting that you want to explore. And our expectation is when a child knows that there's slime on the table, we're expecting them to choose what might be the boring option to them, to come and sit at circle. So as an adult, what I say to you, Beth, I know you're having so much fun in the hammock outside where you're comfortable in nature, but I need you to come inside and have circle time with me, and I'm going to read you a book.
Sounds terrible.
Right. And so it seems really silly because a lot of these things we've put into practice for children, they're meant with good intention, and that's great. But also you have to look at it from the practical side of it. Like if you give them two choices, they're going to pick the fun one. They're going to pick what's more interesting to them. And so that's the biggest underlying theme of the book is you should never do anything to a child, do or say anything you wouldn't to an adult. And then the other common theme, which this is a big one in early childhood, is how to stay unruffled. Your job with a toddler, or any child for that matter, is to be the CEO of the situation. That's with compassion, that's with empathy, but it's to also not let them see that you're ruffled and that you're upset. And that can be really, really hard sometimes as a parent. But it talks about that and then the importance of not manipulating them. And so I highlighted this part that said, toddlers are definitely capable of cooperating, but they need to be taught through respectful feedback, corrections, and modeling rather than being tricked, manipulated, or coerced. So if you come in the house right now, I'm going to give you a cookie. Or if you do this, I'm going to do this. They're human beings and they shouldn't be coerced or manipulated. They should be taught respectful boundaries.
Interesting.
It's fascinating. Everyone should read this book.
No, it really is fascinating, especially when you start interacting with them. As my tendency has always been to interact with kids and talk to them in the same voice that I'm talking to you right now. Just because that's
what you should do.
It's always been my natural inclination because I had sisters who are 9 and 13 years younger than me. So I don't know. It just seemed natural to talk to them like this instead of talking to them as you would a puppy.
Absolutely. So the other big piece of this book talks about how we project our experiences onto children and our frustrations. I highlighted this. It says we get triggered and become angry, frustrated, or scared. We might lose perspective and find ourselves stooping to our child's level, going at it head to head with a tot who's only a fraction of our size. So you have to remember that with children, they are so brilliant that they will know how to push your buttons, and they will push your buttons. Children need you to be in charge, but they need you to do it compassionately. So there's a time for that, but there's also a time where they can be safe and free to explore. So it's this back and forth, but truthfully, they need to see that they're safe, and they need to see that they're safe by knowing that you're in control. But that doesn't mean being a dictator or getting frustrated and projecting it onto them. It means being compassionate and being direct and staying cool and keeping your calm.
So what's an example of that?
Okay. She uses this example in the book. So if you're getting ready to go to the store and you're trying to give your child autonomy and you're saying, okay, I'm going to let you get in your car seat. And when you're ready to get in your car seat, then I'll buckle you in and then we'll go to the store. So points for choosing that you want to give them autonomy and let them be independent and do their own thing. But that situation is not the appropriate time or place to do that because that is not a choice. You need to be in your car seat to be safe. And I'm not going to let you decide how and when that's going to happen. But you can give a choice within and say, you have to sit in your car seat. It keeps you safe and I won't let you not be safe. Will I put you in the car seat or will you get in yourself? If they get in themselves, great. You're still giving them a choice. If they won't, then you calmly and firmly say, I'm going to set you in your car seat. It's my job to keep you safe. And then you're going to buckle them in no matter how much they're screaming, how frustrated they are. But they're searching for you to be that caregiver to protect them. And in the story, the child, I think she was 3 or 4, so she was a little bit older. But after she had her meltdown and was hysterical because her mom buckled her in the car seat, she said to her mom, that's what I wanted you to do. I want you to keep me safe. And so it's this searching for that safety. And there are plenty of choices within things like that or choices outside of that you can give them, but they need to know that you're the cool, calm, collected CEO and that you're going to keep them safe and you're going to set boundaries. Same for if they're hitting you. You don't just let them hit you and let them get it out of their system. You say, that hurts and I won't let you hit me. I'm going to gently hold your hands or I'm going to move my body away from yours. But if you react and you're triggered, they will sense you losing your cool. If you escalate, they sense the escalation and then they think something's wrong and then they feed off of that. So those are the two themes of the book.
It reminds me of when my aunt once texted our family thread a picture of my cousin and he was sobbing hysterically. Like he just looked so distraught. And she said, the reason he's having a meltdown is because I wouldn't let him put his fingers in an electrical socket.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
and that's a perfect example of sometimes it's just non-negotiable, but they're searching for that boundary of safety. They're searching to see that you're calm and cool and collected and charged. So it's important that you remain that way and that you respect them as human beings. So super powerful book. Highly recommend.
Yeah. And if anyone has any troubling childcare concerns, here's your local expert, Courtney Kane, everyone.
Here we go. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a fascinating book. And I know that I've learned a ton from you in the arena of how to even speak to adults by learning from you in the childcare setting. So my number 2 book is Dare to Lead, Brave Work, Tough Conversations, Whole Hearts by Brené Brown.
I dare you to lead. That's what we were getting to in case anyone was confused.
So anyone who knows me or has talked to me for more than 15 minutes knows that I'm slightly obsessed with Brené Brown, and I'm not ashamed of it. That's funny. She's a shame researcher.
It is funny.
I didn't even mean to bring that topic up, and yet there it was. So what I love about this book, and I do love, a lot of her other books and materials as well, but Dare to Lead, if you've not read any of her work, I think Dare to Lead is a great culmination of the different phases of her research. So what I do love is that she is a researcher. So her book is backed by tons of research, but she is a storyteller by nature. And so
which is a powerful combination.
Oh, it's a really powerful combination. And she always says that statistics tell stories. And so she kind of lays her research out in a very relatable storytelling manner in the same fashion that Brendon does in his work as well. So one reason I love this book is because she uses a lot of examples, stories, and she makes it very relatable. And she uses a lot of vulnerable examples from her life as well.
They should check out her Netflix.
You're ruining all my honorable mentions.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Jeez,
I feel like that's more than an honorable mention.
I mean, I do love her Netflix special. So I'll skip right to the honorable mentions. Her other honorable mentions are Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, and the Netflix special. I don't remember what it's called, but you type in Brené Brown and Netflix knows what's up.
And that's a really good introduction. Like if you're not ready to hop into a full book, like I feel like that's a powerful enough interaction.
And she's hilarious.
She's
really, really funny. So if you can watch her live or watch her special or watch her live, I would encourage that if you've got that opportunity. I'm jealous. My sister's seen her live. Our friend Carrie's seen her live. My aunt has seen her live. So that's on the bucket list.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's really, really funny, very relatable, tells a lot of great stories. One thing that I do love about Dare to Lead in particular is that it comes with a workbook. And so as we talked about, we like the actionable steps or whatever. This takes it a bit further, and it actually has a full workbook that you can download for free from her website. And so we're actually working through that at work right now. So we're doing a little bit of a group study, and that has been really, really phenomenal. And it kind of takes you through. She addresses some tough topics, right? So she's a shame researcher. And so that's a topic that a lot of people don't want to necessarily go near with a 10-foot pole. So it's a really great combination that she's also really funny, and she kind of makes the topic less scary. While also addressing, I mean, shame and guilt is a huge kryptonite for a lot of people, and we don't necessarily even know that it's happening. So I love that about her work, is that it just kind of calls these things out it feels like a safe way.
Yeah.
It's not, even though it's backed by tons of research and she's worked personally
it's relatable.
with thousands. I do like that part. And then the other thing that I like about the book is that she gives you the tools, and in some instances, the exact words to address really tough topics that we traditionally have not been taught to tackle. So she takes on, like I said before, she takes on giants like shame and guilt in a society that really has been kept in check by using shame and guilt as weapons. And so we don't even necessarily know it's happening, but once you read her work and kind of go through what she's discovered in her research, there's a lot that is actually fueled by shame and guilt. It's a phenomenal book, and she wrote it to be read in a long flight, is what she said. So a New York to LA flight. So about a 4-hour read if you read it straight through. I've listened to this book 7 or 8 times.
That's a big morning bathroom book when I'm getting ready. I've spent a lot of mornings with Brené.
You're welcome.
I'm not upset about it.
She's been my biggest inspiration in actually having courageous conversations when otherwise it would be easier to not. She really exploded when she did a TEDx talk on shame and broke the internet.
That's what you do. You break the internet.
So that was my number 2. What is your number 3?
Oh, no. I don't like it when I have to choose. I'm going to go with Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving.
Whoa.
The reason it's fascinating is because I had my own idea and my own understanding of what PTSD was and what that meant and what that looked like. When this came out, this terminology of CPTSD, I thought, what is that and how might it be different? I'll just read the definition of complex PTSD right on the first page. So CPTSD is a more severe form of post-traumatic stress disorder. It is delineated from this better-known trauma syndrome by 5 of its most common and troublesome features: emotional flashbacks, toxic shame, self-abandonment, and a vicious inner critic and social anxiety. So what's interesting is the biggest standout point differentiating PTSD from CPTSD are the emotional flashbacks. And so with PTSD, there's typically a specific event that happens that when triggered, people will visualize the event that has happened to them. Whereas with CPTSD, it's the emotional flashback, which doesn't, I won't say always, most times doesn't have a visual image. It's just remembering how you felt. And so that actually kind of goes back to Brené Brown when you talk about in a time where you felt emotionally attacked or there was emotional or verbal abuse, what that feels like when you're being shamed and guilted. And so these are severe enough that it creates the emotional flashback, which is really crazy because it's a hairline trigger. The crazy part about that is those can be triggered from something someone says. It can be someone's tone of voice. It literally has an entire section about how a face someone makes toward you can put you into an emotional flashback. Say, for example, growing up, there was someone in your life that was really disapproving of you or your behaviors, and they made you feel shame and guilt around that, even though you weren't actually doing anything wrong. That's just what it was met with. And they would give you a condescending look or a face that made you feel that shame and guilt. You could be,
I can see your face making a face at me.
Do you understand the face?
Yeah, like it's I understand when you say a condescending.
Yeah. Like
yeah,
you're
like
dumb.
you're stupid face.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm using that because I had that face when I was little. Someone gave that to me. And so now I could be going about my day and everything could be totally fine. And if someone makes that face toward me, it doesn't trigger me back to that moment. It triggers back to how it made me feel. And I'm better at like managing those things now, but it can be so intense and so severe that it can put you into a full-blown fight or flight mode, which can then result in a panic attack just from a look someone's giving you. Like you could be totally fine and then all of a sudden be triggered into something that hard. And so it's just really interesting because the other part is the inner critic. When I think about inner critic and people pleasing and perfectionism and some of those things we talk about, I never would have associated that with CPTSD because again, when I think of PTSD, I think of war or a car accident, but those are the distinguishing factors. And so it says right here, emotional flashbacks are also accompanied by intense arousal of the fight-flight instinct, along with hyperarousal of the sympathetic nervous system, the half of the nervous system that controls arousal and activation. When fear is the dominant emotion in a flashback, the person feels extremely anxious, panicky, or even suicidal. When despair predominates, a sense of profound numbness, paralysis, and desperation to hide may occur. And then the inner critic kicks in. So a sense of feeling small, young, fragile, powerless, and helpless is also commonly experienced with an emotional flashback. All of this comes flooding into your body at once. Simply,
they say arousal a lot.
Is that what you took away from that? So do I need to define what that might mean?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Move on.
Hyperarousal could be overly sensitive to your surroundings.
Just stop saying words.
You don't like that word. So really it just talks about all of these symptoms of CPTSD, which again, emotional flashbacks, I feel like that's a pretty big one that would distinguish it. But like social anxiety, a lot of people have social anxiety or attachment disorders or fragile self-esteem. Like it puts some things in there that you think, oh yeah, I know people that have that or who could have that. The other interesting thing about CPTSD is sometimes it can be misdiagnosed. So some of the top diagnoses that it can be masked as or misdiagnosed. So borderline personality disorder, bipolar, codependent, autistic spectrum, and the big one is ADHD. So oftentimes when people are diagnosed with ADHD, it could actually be CPTSD. So I won't go much deeper. I just know that this is a really, really great book and it has a lot of knowledge and wisdom. And for people who do struggle with emotional flashbacks, it literally will walk you through what you should do, what to tell yourself, how to cope with it so you can kind of prevent going into that fight or flight cycle. I highlighted a couple of the...
You highlighted all of it.
No,
Let's be real.
I'm talking about the table of contents because look at that. There's like 8 pages for the table of contents. But it talks about internal versus external triggers, flashbacks as the inner child's plea for help, perfectionism attacks, perfectionism and emotional neglect, CPTSD.
This is one of your more nerdy picks.
I mean, a lot of my books are like this. Thank
yeah,
you.
but it's very intelligent. Like you can't just leisurely read that on a Sunday.
You could. So basically, I love reading books that give statistics, and our brain is so complex and so crazy. So I just love learning about different things and how it operates and where it comes from, and then tying it into childhood. So yes, it is a very, very deep book, but it's also a book that you can pick up a chapter, read about it, put it away, pull out another chapter. Like it's a
and
really...
maybe read again in a year.
Right.
When you're recovered from that chapter.
Yeah. I'm just going to say the title of this book because I know we're going long. The other one I would highly, highly recommend is You Are the One You've Been Waiting For by Richard C. Schwartz. And the subtitle is Bringing Courageous Love to Intimate Relationships. And so this book is fantastic because it talks about relationships and how we are conditioned by gender from a very young age, and how after the 60s happened, then our gender norms were forced to go in a different direction. And so it's just really fascinating because you can trace back the origin of every fight that a couple has, I feel like, to this book. Like, it basically lays out exactly what's happening, and then it gives you really good specific tools of how you can communicate with each other. And then the underlying theme of this book is how to make sure that you meet your own needs and fulfill yourself. So it speaks to codependency a little bit, well, quite a bit, that basically you can't ever expect you can't rely on your partner to fill the parts of you to make you whole. Like, you need to become whole and take care of yourself in your own way. That way in your relationship, you're not putting that stress on your partner, that dependency, which makes it less enjoyable for them, and you're more secure yourself. So great book for yourself and also for couples and relationships.
I feel like that was a little bit beyond an honorable mention. You actually just talked about it.
No, I
Just
didn't.
Slid that one right in
I'm not
there.
sure what you're talking about. I couldn't choose between both of them, okay?
Well, you're in for a wild ride because
Wow, I don't hear that often.
because I'm going to give you my third top pick,
Okay.
and then I'm going to tell you my honorable mentions.
Okay.
So my third top pick is You Are a Badass at Making Money, Master the Mindset of Wealth by Jen Sincero. And yes, this is the same author that wrote You Are a Badass, the original one, You Are a Badass.
You liked the money one better, though, didn't you?
I did. So I read
Yeah.
the money one second one, well, because she came out with it second. The reason I like You Are a Badass at Making Money, I do like the original one. That's my other
An honorable mention.
Yeah. I apparently have a lot of limiting beliefs around money.
I think a lot of people probably do.
And this book kind of helped call that right out. And again, she has the actionable items at the end of each chapter that kind of helps you take small steps to breaking those, because limiting beliefs are so crippling because they're like weaved into the fabric of your DNA. They're very, very hard to turn around, and it comes with a lot of practice and a lot of mindful shifts in the way that you're thinking and believing. So
You were going to say mindful shit. I was
well,
like,
yeah,
okay,
also
all right.
mindful shit.
Yeah.
So the other thing, obviously, if you've read You Are a Badass, you know that she's crass and to the point and funny, which is refreshing in the world of self-development, because a lot of times it can feel a bit how should I say this, emotional,
Heavy.
it can feel a bit touchy-feely,
Intense.
Anyway, this book was, I think, the original book that kind of got sassy in its language. So I just find it funny. I really like this book.
We saw her when she came to Traverse City.
Yeah, we did.
Her standout to me was whatever you put into the universe and manifest, that's what you're going to get back.
I always feel, so she did an open question and answer at the end. I feel so uncomfortable at question and ansers.
Especially when they come up and they're
just-
like, I don't have a question, but I love you.
Yeah, they just fangirl the whole time. And I'm like, is someone monitoring that? Like, take the microphone away. Also, the one girl asked her out to coffee
Oh, yeah.
in front of the
That was
whole
really
theater. And
brave.
I wanted to melt into the earth.
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
really brave.
It was very brave and very
Jen
uncomfortable.
said no.
And Jen was like, I'd love to. I can't. So anyway, question and answers, live question and answers make me very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I can see your body position
Yeah,
changing.
I don't like it.
All right, what are
Okay.
your honorable mentions?
So now I have honorable mentions, and there's several categories because I like a lot of books.
Yeah.
Okay, so my number one runner-up is The Circle Maker, Praying Circles Around Your Biggest Dreams and Greatest Fears.
We're reading that one right now.
Yes, so this is by Mark Batterson, and I've come back and read this book several times. And this is actually the blog post I wrote about when we got our house. This is the book that I was referencing in that blog post, and I'll link that up in the show notes so that you can read that journey.
This book
What a
also
gem.
was Sojourn. When I walk the circle at Sojourn.
That's true. Well, and we also walk our neighborhood, which is a circle. Anytime we have things to pray about, we physically walk in a circle. But it's a phenomenal book. It has a lot of very profound things in it that are easy to grab and hold on to.
And good stories. I love his stories.
Yeah.
They're so powerful.
Yeah. And it's just like such a great compilation of stories that like, how would you ever find these? Runner up number 2. I thought you were going to mention this one. Everything is Figureoutable by Marie Forleo.
That is a good book.
So we both love this book. Everything is Figureoutable. Marie Forleo is another. I've been following her for years. She's phenomenal. She's funny. She's sassy. She's from New Jersey. She's got a little bit of an attitude, and who doesn't love that?
Yeah.
So.
And that one, I made it 3/4 of the way through. That's how
very
serious
excited about that
I
one.
was about this book.
Yeah, that was another one that as soon as I read it, I started gifting it to people right away.
I just love that she makes it okay to not have everything figured out. Like, she will tell you everything is figureoutable, but at the same time, I love that she never stayed in a place that didn't feel right for her career-wise, even though it wasn't like the most culturally appropriate thing to do.
She calls herself a multi-passionate entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I just love that she was honest.
She was a
that.
Nike sponsored dancer. She was she did exercise videos. She was on MTV. And then she started a business, a life coaching business when she was like 22. So she
in someone's basement, and like 2 people showed up, and she stapled the papers together.
Yeah, so she has a really great story, and that book also has a ton of stories supporting
and swearing.
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah, that's true. She says if you're
giggle.
Easily offended,
don't listen.
Probably stop listening.
Yep.
So that one's a great one. Runner up number 3 is Unclobber, Rethinking Our Misuse of the Bible on Homosexuality by Colby Martin.
That is a good one.
That is a phenomenal book, very eye-opening, and he is very, very well-spoken and really progressive in the church space and being welcoming to all.
And props to him he's a straight pastor, he has a family, but he said that what did he say? That it didn't align.
His head and his heart did not align.
His head and his heart didn't align about homosexuality and what the Bible had to say about it and what that looks like in today's society. And he goes through the quote unquote clobber passages in the Bible.
6 verses in the Bible that are used to alienate those who are in same-sex relationships.
And he does a very, very good job, very well researched, like down to the Greek translation of what was actually said and what that meant at the time. And that was a really powerful book for us.
Yep. All right, so other honorable mentions in the business category.
Oh my God, we're still going.
I told you, I just really like books. Number 1 is Multipliers, How the Best Leaders Make Everyone Smarter by Liz Weissman.
That is good.
Second honorable mention is Start With Why, How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action by Simon Sinek. Yep. Number 3 is Pitch Perfect, How to Say It Right the First Time Every Time by Bill McGowan. Also, yes, I love the movie.
I knew it.
But only 1 and 2. 3 was kind of weird. All right, so that was the business category.
Oh my gosh.
Honorable mention for memoirs, Forward by Abby Wambach.
I totally forgot about that book until you just said it out loud. You were obsessed with that book.
I know.
At the Arbors.
I can't remember anything about it, but I can remember the places I was when I was listening to it, and it also brought me into tears. I wept.
Yeah, you're standing by the kitchen counter. I know enough about the book because you told me about it.
Yeah, so that was a really phenomenal book, and also Becoming by Michelle Obama.
Oh, I never read that one.
Yeah, I listened to that one whilst shoveling the driveway for hours.
I did hear her in the bathroom sometimes.
Yeah, I think I listened to that one several times as well. Okay, and lastly, the last category of honorable mentions is in the personal development category.
Oh my God. This is not an award show, just so we're clear.
But if it were, this would be pretty phenomenal. So, number 1, Girl Stop Apologizing.
Yeah.
A Shame-Free Plan for Embracing and Achieving Your Goals by Rachel Hollis.
We should all stop apologizing.
Number 2 is Present Over Perfect. Leaving Behind Frantic for a Simpler, More Soulful Way of Living by Shauna Nyquist.
Yeah, I do like that one. That's good.
Number 3 is Of Mess and Moxie, Wrangling Delight Out of This Wild and Glorious Life. And also, For the Love, Fighting for Grace in a World of Impossible Standards, and both of those are by Jen Hatmaker.
How does all that knowledge fit inside your tiny little head?
Well, thank you for thinking I have a tiny head.
It's a cute,
Instead
tiny
of-
little head.
Instead of a big head. And my fifth one was simplify.
Oh,
But you
I
already-
thought we were done. I
already talked
I
about
took
it
care of Simplify,
at
and I do
length.
not
I
feel
know.
guilty for sliding in my side honorable mention after you did that.
I know. I'm kind of glad you did that so that it gave me the right to do it at the end.
It gave you
and just
permission.
tell my top ones in all the categories. It's just that there's so many good books out there and
I
so many
know.
brilliant
We'll
authors.
have to do this again next year. Like, we'll have to rotate.
Can we do our favorite top podcasts next?
Yeah, except I don't really listen to podcasts.
Did you just yawn?
Yeah, I did.
Well, this has been an extra special episode. And by extra special,
You're happy. That's what that means.
I'm very happy. It also went a tish over what we normally do, but I think it's very, very helpful information. So if any of these book recommendations help you, we are quite happy to have led you to them. We will link all of them in our show notes on our website at lifewithbethandcourt.com. And as we always say, take what's helpful, leave the rest. We would love to hear some of your recommendations. Gosh, this is going to be a great post over on social media, on Facebook or Instagram, when we tell you that this episode went live and that we want to hear from you. I can't wait to hear some of your recommendations because I love learning about new books. So we'll see you back here next week, same time, same place. Until then, keep building your best life.
Bye, guys.